Listen to me. We don't want to kill any of you. But trust me, we will. Wake them up a little!
This whole thing is pretty much done. We're more ghosts than people.
You have got to keep faith. They will not crush us.
Good old Dutch. My best friend. You know how we met? Pair of hucksters trying to rob each other. Back in 78 or thereabouts.
You have to love yourself a fire. It's one of the blessings. Sure, we can have fire. And we can have the knowledge of fire. But with that comes the knowledge of everything. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a robbery.
Sons of Dutch. Makes us brothers. Sometimes, brothers make mistakes.
You'll never change. I know that.
All of you venerate savagery. And you will die savagely.
Get out here! Stay strong. Stay with me.
Alright, welcome back to Handy with the Steel, Chapter 9. This one will be called The Funeral, and this takes place on the next day, and we'll look at the newspaper from today. Tragedy. The cowardice of the Yellow Man knows no bounds. Our sheriff, the affable Greg Gunderson, was ambushed by Injuns. These yellow savages murdered our poor sheriff and injured his deputy, Bill Tucker. I call for all people to rise up against these godless heathens and fight for your manifest destiny. Sheriff Gunderson will be laid to rest this afternoon at 1 o'clock in the town cemetery. Reverend Carson is to preside. Wear your best attire, no drunkenness or lawlessness. May Jesus Christ call Sheriff Gunderson into his holy arms through the pearly gates of heaven. David Boys found. Deputy Nelson and Lou Longley found the David Boys hiding out among the foothills of the Rockies near the lumberjack operation northwest of town. Reports confirm the David clan was shot down like the dogs they are. Bill David is said to have murdered a whore when evading arrest. She was known as Josephine and worked at the Jewel. Her funeral will be scheduled at a later date. So the first scene we're gonna go to is before the paper is written, probably sometime after Nelson had found that the sheriff had been killed. His heart heavy, he makes his way to the Jewel to tell the madam there some unfortunate news. It's probably 10 a.m. and there's no one inside the Jewel except those that work there. The murder of a sheriff is not good for business. Kate, if you want to describe the scene anymore, what's going on there, feel free as Nelson approaches the outside of the Jewel.
Kate's been keeping a watchful eye at the door, at the windows. She's got a couple of shots down already. She knows that the sheriff's been killed, and that's a bad thing, but she has other things on her mind. Some recent news has hit her hard, and she's always got her eye on the street. waiting for a certain person possibly to walk in the door. The small details of the brothel, what her girls are up to, the minutiae of business she's let slide for the past day or so, in the midst of all this mental ruckus that she's experiencing. The fact that the place is near empty doesn't bother her none at the moment. She could use the time to think.
About that time, I presume, Nelson Ward begins walking up. He's not really ever properly been to the brothel much. Maybe like once or twice when he first came into the area, but not really since. He's been here for a while now.
Well, you would notice it was much changed from the old.
Yeah, I think it used to be just Kate had tents set up.
Well, she had bought the building. It might have been an old saloon, but just a dingy, nasty place that she had fixed up.
Yeah, so Nelson is kind of properly being in for the first time. He's kind of surprised at how niced up it is. Kind of takes a step in. He's not looking well. He's pallid, looks sorrowful, but doesn't really have the bearings of someone who's had a good day, let alone anything else. As he kind of walks up into there, looking around, spotting Albert, giving a nod over towards the bar, and then spotting Kate and kind of walking quite directly towards her.
Kate motions him to a nearby bar stool. Deputy Ward, is it?
Yeah, Nelson.
Drink one in memory of our lost Sheriff Gunderson.
Yeah, the moment Gunderson is mentioned, his face kind of drops a bit more. Yeah.
Well, the first one's on me. And she just gestures to Albert to pour him.
Yeah, he gives a hearty nod. Condolences for Mr. Gunderson. And passes a drink over to the both of you. And slips a shot himself. Nelson takes it and kind of looks at it for a moment. He doesn't drink a ton, but he certainly drinks as he kind of slams a good half of it back. Thank you. That was good.
How's your head feeling?
He kind of taps the side of it, motioned to the spot where he was shot. I'm doing fine now. Nothing too bad. Healed up pretty quick.
That's good to hear it.
And
We
how?
need all the law we can get around here these days.
Yeah, I suppose we do. Especially after what happened to Mr. Gunderson. Damn Indians. I fucking knew better as well. You can see he's like on the verge of tears as once he really starts thinking about it again. Kind of shakes himself back.
No,
Sorry.
Deputy. I've been thinking on this. As she speaks, she's slurring just a little bit. It ain't possibly you that's responsible for this, but I think I might know who's to blame. Some folks that came to town swinging their dicks in my place and taking, well, giving offense where they shouldn't. They came into town with what looked like to me patchy bodies slung over the backs of their horses.
What do you mean? What are you talking about?
Them buffalo soldiers.
What, you saying they shot up the engines and?
I reckon they did. I don't think them buffalo soldiers was just taking a nap. I mean them engines. Sorry, I'm a bit out of sorts myself.
No, it's those kind of times, ma'am. I mean, I can't quite blame them, can I? after what they did to Gunderson.
Well,
What a
no,
terrible
no,
thing.
this was a full Gunderson. They responsible.
Nelson kind of looks to the ground, shakes his head. I don't know about that. I've seen what the Indians do to people. They do nothing but kill. And this is surely enough that again. Whether those Buffalo soldiers did anything or not, it doesn't matter. Anyway, he looks like he's like really fighting back something, but something happened. You see, we went out. We found those David boys.
She immediately brightens. Oh, you did. And you're back to tell the tale, so you brought any of them back?
He shakes his head. No, not one. They're all dead. They did. All of them, they were pretty stubborn. Holed up in an old shack up in the mountains. Mighty cold out there, and well, like I said, they're all dead. But they had one of your girls out there.
Oh, what? What do you mean? They had one of my girls. She
Well,
suddenly stands up and looks around like she's gonna suddenly notice someone's not there.
No, Miss Kate, please. I know you must be worried, but he kind of pauses. Well, it was. They said her name was Miss Josephine, I think it was.
At this, she just, her face goes completely slack, and she stumbles a little bit against the bar behind her. Well, Joe, she went down to the mercantile to pick a few things up. It's just a few hours. I guess I lost track of time. But you say they grabbed her?
His face by this point is completely sullen, very downcast. Yeah. Well, they used her as a hostage, and all. They were hoping to get away with her, run off into the mountains, probably. And
But they're all dead now, and you brought her back.
he kind of looks like he's about to shake his head, yes and no at the same time almost. All of them are dead. Miss Kate. Josephine passed away in the fight.
She leans on her arms back on the bar behind her, and she looks like she might fall. No, that can't be.
I'm sorry, Miss Kate. I don't know if you were particularly close with her.
You a liar!
He
Joe's upstairs. Albert,
shakes his
tell
head.
him.
Albert, it looks entirely shocked as well by this. Like, he's been close with Kate and Josephine with how long he's worked here. He kind of takes a step over closer to the edge of the bar. Now, what do you mean? Nelson. And Nelson kind of just shakes his head. She... Straight bullet caught her, and she died on the spot.
No, not Joe's. Oh, what have I done? What have I done?
No, it's not your fault, Miss Kate. If it's anyone's fault, it's mine.
No, what do you mean it's your fault? Joe's been... She's been shouldering all the consequences for my sins our whole lives. No more. Now she's dead. She's in heaven now. And I'll never see her again. 'Cause I'm gonna be in hell.
Nelson looked kind of taken aback, yeah, and doesn't really know what to say.
She turns and buries her face into her arms on the bar for a good couple of minutes, just sobbing.
Yeah. Graham actually kind of leans over towards her, kind of puts a hand on hers. Now, I know this is bad, Kate, but
she was the only person who ever loved me, Graham.
No, Kate, come on. We all love you here. This is...
No. She takes a couple of sniffling breaths and she turns back to Nelson. Well, where's her body? She deserves a Christian burial.
Yeah, Nelson goes even paler at that and kind of looks down towards the ground. I'm sorry. Miss Kate, she, the whole place went up in flames and we weren't able to get her out.
You just left her there? With them? You expect her spirit to rest among those inbred fiends?
There was nothing we could do. The whole place went up in flames, like I said, and we couldn't quite get through the fire to get to her. I mean, it's quite bad.
You tell me.
Miss Kate.
You tell me exactly where she died, and I'll send someone to get her ashes. She can't stay there, you see.
Nelson nods. Yeah, I'll tell you everything I can. Hell, I'll go out with them if you need me to.
She calms down just a little, nods. You see that you do. She wore a ring. It was a black pearl. First real piece of jewelry she ever had the money to buy. She liked to look at it because it was from the ocean and it was dusky like her. She wanted to see the ocean someday, not just them oily waters over on the coast by New York, but those blue waters where she says her ancestors came from.
Well, hopefully maybe, I don't know, you could take her ashes. It might be a good way to send her off. But I'll do whatever I can. Find that ring for you and everything.
All right, then. You go now. You go before I quit being sad and I start being angry.
Of course, ma'am. He kind of gives a pretty hearty nod. My condolences. He kind of rushes out.
Kate just ignores his exit and turns to Albert and says, "Oh, Albert, what am I going to do without Josie?"
Albert kind of reaches across the bar and kind of pulls her close over it a bit. I know. Don't worry. I'll do whatever I can to help. This is something going to take time to heal, I know. But he finally lets go and pulls off one of the higher shelf drinks and pours them each a glass. For now, to remember, I suppose. Eh,
Kate takes the drink and she slings it back in silence. Just sits and thinks. His tears just stream down her cheeks. But with years of practice, she chokes back the sobs and mourns her friend in silence for the rest of the day.
As Albert and Kate drink to the memory of Josephine, the camera exits the bar and swings over to a chapel not too far, just across the square, where Reverend Carson sits in the front pew by himself currently. There's a casket. One second. Not sure why that started. There's a casket near the exit, closed, nailed shut. He looks down at a piece of parchment, and go ahead, Rogue.
So, Jim Carson's been writing this letter on and off for quite some time, and he's been meaning to send it to this widow, Jeanette Faring, for a long time now, at least several months. Not quite sure exactly how long, but he's been writing it on and off, and he's finishing it up with the Bible next to it. He often has it folded up into the Bible, and that same Bible has a little bullet hole in it. It actually saved his life in the last gunfight. And the words that he's writing: if I was to tell you that I was a good man back in the day, then I would be lying. I've done evil things, and until my dying breath, I will remain in penance for those things. I will remain a servant of the Lord and Savior, and use what is left of my breath to try and teach the right path to those who need it most. I've buried too many men, women, and children, watched the dirt fall on their wooden boxes, and I care not to see any more. I do believe, though, that there is evil out there, and that there are good men sent by the Lord to fight it. I was one of those evil men at one time, and one day one of the Lord's men came to stop me. For some reason he failed. For some reason my bullet took his life away, and his only hit me in the leg. Although I will always walk with a constant reminder of him, for some reason he died and I did not. But it was after I put that boy in the dirt, who was only seeking justice for the wrongs that I did to his father and his family, that I decided I no longer wanted to be on the wrong side anymore. So I write this letter to you, Jeanette Faring, and hope that you may find some kind of solace in the fact that your son died well. That if I could have done things differently, I would have let him kill me instead. He was a good man, and I know that it doesn't help to hear it, but I am forever sorry for the pain that I have put you through. I know one day you will be reunited with your son and your husband in heaven, and I will burn in hell for the wrongs that I have done. And he sets the pen down and looks up towards the door as he finishes, and regards, Jim Carson.
As you sit the letter down and sit in silence for a few moments, the doors to the chapel swing open. Standing there is Deputy Tucker, and he looks in extremely bad shape. These bandages wrapped around his head, covering his ear, bandages around his torso, all very haphazardly put together. Go ahead, Bo.
And as Bill Tucker stands inside the doorway, the light from outside is filtering down. Some of it cascades through the windows of the chapel and falls out into little fractal patterns on the floor. Bill Tucker, in his simple style, stands at the door and sees that the Reverend is deep in thought with his letter. And kind of, pardon me, Reverend?
Yes.
As you look at Bill, he has this kind of gauze wrapped around his head. Most of it is pristine white, newly applied. There's a blossom of red near his left ear, where he took a wound during the last battle. And as he walks in, his glance strays down to the coffin that it's a sheriff in the coffin box, right?
You would assume so.
Yeah, he kind of looks down at it, and his eyes linger over the pine box, and then he kind of hastens by it, struggling to pick his gaze up off the ground, and eventually it falls upon the Reverend. Do you have a moment? I'm in bad shape, Reverend. And it's not just these wounds of the flesh that have me. Kind of walks towards that front pew, and you hear it creak as he kind of sits down next to the Reverend.
And, sorry, does Jim know Bill?
He's been around for a couple years as deputy, I think, maybe.
I'm sure in passing at the very least.
Yeah.
He'd certainly attend service. Probably would be fairly quiet in the back, but he'd come to service when he can.
So Jim actually gets up using his cane and pretty quickly to kind of help, even though it's a little too slow to actually help him sit down. Damn, Bill, what happened to you?
Oh, don't mind me, Reverend. He got the worst of it. And not another word about my earthly condition. It's something else, Reverend.
Oh, so you saw all of it then, huh?
He nods, and his head drops down between his knees, and that's right. That's right. My soul, Reverend, it's something awful and heavy. It's like a weight pressing on my chest. Since them heathens killed Gundy over there. Look of him, Reverend, it's not something I can get out of my head. Like, have you ever been out on the prairie, Reverend?
Jim sighs and he slumps back down into the chair again, and kind of an understanding look on his face, and he nods. Yes, sir, I have.
Yeah, me too. You know, I'm from way back east, Cuyahoga County, Ohio, all the way out there to declare awful lot of prairie. No hills, certainly no mountains, only a big, blank, blue sky. And at high noon, Reverend, there's that sun staring straight down at you. And if you look directly at it, it burns itself into your eyes, you know? That's the way I feel about the sheriff. I feel like that side of him, with his head blown near off, it's burned into my eyes like that hot sun on the prairie. He kind of stares up at the cross near the altar. I don't know, Reverend. Maybe it's the eye of God, his will, right? Like they say, even the curse of God is a blessing. I've been thinking a lot about that, about the old stories and how the will of the Almighty made itself manifest through his servants like you, like Like me, I try to do good work, so you try to do the same. I don't know. Maybe I've been put here to see that image of Gundy. Maybe that image of him with his blood leaking out onto the broken floor of that old cabin, like our Savior's blood on the cross, like the blood of our Savior. Maybe it was that blood of Sheriff Gunderson that saved me. I don't know. Maybe I'm being grandiose. I've done bad things. I need guidance, sir.
Jim nods, and kind of a sad look on his face. He looks to the floor and he says, "That those things you seen, man, that ain't something you can wash away. That'll never leave you. Horrible things we get to see. And I'll tell you the truth. I'm not going to pretend to be a professional, but I will tell you, I've done bad things too, and I know that I will pay for them. But I do feel that I'm still here for a purpose, and if I can make as many things right that I can make right, then that's what I'll do."
Well, looks like you and me were two peas in a pod, huh? He picks his head up and looks at the cross again, towards the altar. But if I can do anything, I'll do anything to set this right, Reverend. To correct the evils of my past. Hell, I'd do anything to bring Gundy back to life. If I could just find some way out of this maze, because, Reverend, I can't take another sleepless night like last night. And I don't want to turn to drink. And I don't want to go to bed seeing Gundy's blonde hair matted with maroon blood. No more. I need to see that sun set on the prairie, Reverend. I need a new chapter. The good Lord would only guide my hand as to the writing of the tale. Shucks, I ain't meaning to sound grandiose. Putting the cart before the horse, you know. Quiet life raising livestock. That would be the life for me. But then I just have to think. Abraham didn't ignore God when the call came, though he tried. There's no running from God, Sheriff, and there's no running from the eye of that wrathful sun that stares down on you on the prairie. The best you can do is saddle up and tighten your gun belt. Get to doing the Lord's work, I suppose.
As you're talking, you hear the door creak open, and you see the former sheriff and current mayor standing in the doorway, just staring down at the pine box, not saying anything.
Jim will stand up. "Mayor, sir, how are you?"
I've been better. He gives a look over to the preacher and then Tucker. "Bill, you look terrible. You not seen the doc yet?"
I look that good, huh? Oh, I doctor my own wounds for the time being. Like I was telling the good Reverend here, old Gundy got the worst of it. I'm just glad to be alive.
I can't.
That's a manner of speaking.
I can't believe this. Engines.
Jim kind of looks back down to the floor and then back up to Mayor again. He kind of knows where they're both going, and he doesn't know if he should say anything about it yet. And but he does come out with a are y'all gonna hunt those boys down?
Mayor thinks about it for a moment. That was my first instinct, but I don't know. This is a military thing. Those Buffalo soldiers in town. He just shakes his head.
It's a terrible thing that's been done, but violence against more violence. you know,
Well,
that ain't the right answer.
well, preacher, eventually you gotta stop the violence, and sometimes you need violence to do that.
I understand. He nods and looks over at Bill, and it's better to seek happiness sometimes, you know. If they're coming back around, though, I can totally understand. Something must be done.
Yeah. It's part of the reason I came here, Reverend. I'm lost in this. I can pray all night, and I'm just not hearing a damn thing. I don't know about that limp, Reverend, but like you said, you have some life experience. I need guidance. Your whole flock needs guidance on this matter, and that I'd be willing to go to the gates of hell to avenge Gundy's death. And I can think of no greater work of good than making these lands and environs outside of LeClaire safe for the Lord's people. A rancher should be able to tend to his cattle without fear of Injuns. A gold panner should be able to go up onto them in their heels and seek his fortune without the fear of being scalped in his sleep, Reverend. And that's on one side of the coin. The other side of the coin, like you said, is if no trouble's coming to you, a wise man would do his best not to seek out that trouble. I'm a man torn, Reverend. A man torn, but I'll tell you one thing. You get the public out there, they see that good sheriff in this box. That sheriff that did nothing for the past 10 years and keep order in this town. Somebody's going to have to pay. I think that the citizens of LeClaire, they're going to demand some sort of blood, Reverend.
I don't doubt that.
Well, the mayor, he shakes his head, and you can kind of notice he's fingering something in his hand. And he steps forward to Bill and he says, well, somebody's got to keep order in this town. And he passes over a 10 towards you. Don't make me give this to Nelson.
Yeah, he looks at it. I'm guessing it's the badge.
Yep.
And kind of picks it up. Is it just my mind playing tricks on me, May, or is this thing weigh a hell of a lot more than it should? This is the weight of the entire town of LeClaire. I don't know if I'm ready for this, sir.
Well, I have to tell you truthfully, Bill, we don't got much options.
Jim's nodding too towards Bill. And I think you're the right man for the job.
And he affixes it to his lapel, and a little drop of blood drops down from his bandage, and Bill Tucker wipes it off with his shirt sleeve. And I'll try to do justice to the office, Mayor. Reverend.
And even though I know your mind's in turmoil right now, but you're exactly where you should be.
He looks deep in thought. And I think he's not going to say anything else. Just kind of nods quietly to the Reverend.
The mayor looks between the both of you and then down at the pine box, takes a deep breath. I'll do some thinking on what we need to do, Bill. For now, see the doc, get yourself cleaned up. I'll see you at the funeral.
Yeah. Good morning, Mayor.
He puts a hand on Bill's shoulder and squeezes it and slaps it slightly and nods to the Reverend. Reverend.
The Reverend nods to him and walks over and sits next to the box with the sheriff in it and just puts his hand on it, kind of prays, his head down.
As the Reverend's praying and the newly appointed sheriff sits there in thought, the time passes and everyone begins to congregate around the graveyard just outside of town. It's actually very sparsely populated, if you will. Not many men have died in LeClaire. It comes time for the pallbearers to lift the casket and bring it to the cemetery. Those carrying the pine box include the mayor and I'm guessing the new sheriff and his deputy and others. And 1 sec. Many of LeClaire's citizens attend. The sheriff was, above all things, a very likable fella. Good with a word and fair to everyone. His death has come to quite a shock to everyone. These last few days have burned the violence through LeClaire like never before. Progress, desire, the more people that come, the more you don't know them. And the more you don't know a man, the more you don't know what they'll do. Why these engines ambushed the sheriff and Deputy Tucker and their posse, maybe nobody will know. But all the same, now there's a closed casket sitting next to a 6-foot hole. A mound of dirt piled up beside it. A cross at the head. Standing there waiting is Reverend Carson, his Bible in his hand. The probably 36 people surrounding the procession as it makes its way. And finally, as the casket is lowered into the grave, the cries from the women and the staunch silence of the men are broken by the Reverend's sermon.
We are gathered here today to pay our respects to a servant of this community. And the Reverend goes on to speak some lines from the Bible and stuff, but I'll just skip over that. And, he finishes up more talking about Gunderson. A man who laid down his life for others and did his duty to uphold and protect the law of this town. I'm sure if he was here today, he'd say, "Oh, hurry up, Reverend Carson, get on with it. People have important things to do." But this is important. We need to pay our respects to you, Sheriff Greg Gunderson. We thank you for all you have done to protect us, and we are glad that you can rest now knowing you did your job and did it well. There will always be violence in this world. And with that one, he looks over towards the new sheriff. There will always be violent men, and always too much of it. It is in this whirlwind that life is that we must try to hold on to the ones we love. So, Greg, I'm sure you want all of us to get on with it, so until we meet again, Sheriff, may the Lord watch over you in heaven and peace be always with you. Amen. Ashes to ashes and dust to dust.
With the Reverend's words, very many of the people, amen. And the mayor, who has known Gundy the longest and was his closest friend, takes the shovel and throws the first of the dirt over the coffin, his eyes red, unable to control himself. He begins to weep. Over the next 15 minutes or so, the hole is filled.
Oh, Tet.
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody else offer any words?
Yeah, go ahead. If anybody else wishes to speak.
Kate does stand up sometime after watching to see if anybody else is going to say anything about the sheriff. She does stand up eventually and walks to the front near where the preacher was. She's wearing her absolute finest, overlaid with black lace. Even though it's expensive and fits perfectly, it's the dress of a lady and not a madam. She pushes the black veil from her face and carries a red rose up to the casket. She turns to the people that are congregated, looks down at the casket, meets the eyes of a few people in the crowd. She says, if y'all don't mind, I'm gonna bend your ear for just a few words about the sheriff. I suppose that there aren't many of you that don't know, but I'm Catherine Byrne, proprietress of the Jewel. Sheriff Gunderson was the first man to greet me on arrival, and he made sure that I knew that the law would do its best to keep LeClaire safe for all citizens and entrepreneurs. He certainly died being true to his word. He wasn't what the good book calls a respecter of persons. Rich or poor, high and low of station, Gundy was there for all of us, like a white knight. And he is going to be a hard man to replace. Now, impossible. I know his law hit us all hard. Know that there are plenty that knew him better, she says, nodding at the mayor and at Tucker and at Nellie. But I don't want his example to be lost on any of us. Some of you might think that the Jewel is nothing more than a necessary evil in LeClaire and not think much of me. And that's fine, I know my place. But in honor of this man, I wanted to announce my plans to build the Greg Gunderson Memorial Civic Center here in town. A place for all good and wholesome people to meet, socialize, and hold events. LeClaire's growing fast, and I know Gundy wanted to keep it a place with opportunities and appeal for all you good folk. With that said, I hope whoever does take his place, and she nods over at Tucker again, holds his values. Someone that won't overlook the cause of this tragedy. The dusky man responsible for stirring up the scalpers into this bloody attack and dragging violence into town on the backs of their horses. Claire's on the cusp of greatness, and it's becoming clear that there may be agents of other places that want to smear the name of LeClaire, make it too dangerous and unsafe for progress. But, and she shakes her head, I'm getting carried away. Let me just close by saying, like you all, my heart is filled with grief today. For those of you that wish to honor the sheriff the old-fashioned way, the Jewel will be offering a glass in his memory for all who drop by. And she turns to the casket and drops the rose that she brought. For you, Gundy, best of us all.
Can you give me a rhetoric roll?
Yes, please.
That is under communications.
Oh, I rolled it off the sheet and it just didn't show up.
All right.
I'll do it here.
Yeah, so as you are speaking, you seem to be catching people's eyes. They're paying very close attention when you say something about the Greg Gunderson Memorial Civic Center. There's quite a few people who clap slightly, but respectfully, and they seem to all be very, very pleased with what you've said from what you can read on people's faces. The mayor nods. Thank you, Kate.
She did particularly try to catch his eye when she was talking about people that might be trying to stop progress in town.
Yeah, he's pretty stoic and pretty red-eyed, but he was paying attention to what you were saying for sure, and he kind of ushers you away.
She goes meekly and humbly after. I mean, she just tosses the rose onto the casket and moves to the back of the crowd.
He looks over everybody. Anyone else have anything to say?
Nelson looks like he's about to almost get up for a minute, but seems too conflicted to actually do so. He kind of just shakes his head softly.
I think Bill would probably be close to Nelson's deputy too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Or was I'll probably be sitting next to Nelson, and he feels that badge weighing heavy on his left breast, and kind of sees Nelson stir, and he kind of mutters to himself, "God damn it!" He kind of stands up and he puts his hat between his hands and puts it over his chest and walks up towards the casket and says, I'm no Kate. I'm no orator, and I'm a man of few words, and if you know me, I'd just as soon keep to myself on the outside of town than be up in front of you all addressing, talking about such a great man. And I think all of us knew Gundy, and one of the reasons LeClaire has been so prosperous is the security this kind of taps this man here provided. Without that, this place would be little more than a couple hills and a ramshackle saloon. Instead, we have a new civic center about to be built. Kind of uneasy chuckling, and maybe people give a embarrassed laugh. I now wear this badge here, and I'm going to try my darndest to step into Gundy's boots, and I'll do my best. I suppose I'll have to close up my carpentry shop, find me down at the jail, and come to me with your problems, and I promise you we'll come up with some sort of solution that's amenable to everybody here. Gundy deserves justice, but nobody here deserves a war either, so we're going to have to put all of our heads together and come up with some sort of solution.
You hear one of the miners speak up. We get those Indians, we kill them. They killed the sheriff. And somebody's like, yeah. There's a few people that are agreeing with him.
Bill nods. He nods. I agree. Justice will have to be served. We're going to have to do it the right way. We're going to have to use our heads. I don't think we're going to take on the whole Arapaho nation. Just you and me, sir. But I can tell you one thing. We're a hell of a lot smarter than them heathen Injuns out there. Just give us a couple days. We'll work on it.
There's some muttering. Somebody says, "What about the Negroes that she's talking about? They get them all riled up, get Gundy killed?"
Oh, is this the Buffalo Soldiers?
Yeah, Buffalo Soldiers, yeah.
Kate starts whispering to people at this. Some say they did it on purpose. Some say they're working for this and this town that's nearby that wants the railroad.
Yeah, the crowd is getting a little worked up.
Jim's gonna try to calm them down or say something to. Yeah, he says, no. We're here to pay respects to Sheriff Gunderson now. Thank you so much, Miss Kate, for the offerings. If y'all want to go have a drink there, that sounds like a great idea.
They're just kind of... They're talking to each other, but they're not going to keep yelling out. Eventually, the crowd begins to disperse a bit. As everyone, it appears to be, is done speaking unless the sheriff has anything else to say.
He doesn't have much else to say. He, like I said, he's a man of few words. The miners probably know that he's slow to action, but when he acts, he's can be a violent man. So.
Yeah, most take off, leaving those that are sticking around. The mayor just takes a deep breath and shakes his head as the burial is finished. He walks over to the crowd, or more correctly where you guys are sitting, and just says, "Oh, this is gonna get bad before it gets good."
Yes, it is. We don't need a war.
Send them man that caused it to fix it.
I've been thinking of something similar. Yeah, they are the Union.
It's tell you the truth, Mr. Hill. There's a lot of whispers in town.
Oh yeah? You'd know better than me. What whispers is that, man?
Whispers about strangers, Pinkertons, folks trying to keep the railroad out so it'll bypass LeClaire and end up someplace else. I hate to think that that this noble man's death was a byproduct of someone's greed. Paying these soldiers, maybe.
He takes a tin out of his pocket and opens it, and has a couple rolled cigarettes. Takes one out, reaches down and strikes it against the cross, not Gundy's cross, but someone else's, and lights his cigarette and takes a drag, and he's like, "Well, Miss Kate, do you know why Gundy was out down Brookville way?"
He was out looking for them David boys, I do know that. I don't know why he went that way, though.
Well, that's beside the point. I do know what happened in the Jewel, ma'am. You gave one of those David boys a good licking on the hand. Got 'em all riled up.
Them David boys was no good. They chased a woman down the street. They kidnapped a woman and they nearly killed another. I think a slap on the hand was the least of what they deserved, and they got exactly what they deserved. You sit here, you gonna blame me? You gonna blame me for the actions of these inbred, evil men who are this minute roasting on the devil's spit?
No, I'm not blaming you, I'm just speaking the facts. Let's not get all our panties in a bunch here blaming people for this and that just on rumor. That's my point.
Well, it's only a rumor until it's true. And if it's true that this was these men's intent, that's a little different than smacking a boy on the hand with a hammer for beating a woman.
Why is some buffalo soldiers coming here? I hear they're looking for somebody a bounty.
Well, that's what they say, isn't it? Of course, they would have some excuse.
Well, I do follow all leads, and I'll see to it. Talk to these boys and then try to make good and see what they're up to. Bill, can you gather some of these buffalo soldiers, these black soldiers, and bring them over to the house, or maybe your office is better, and we'll have a talking to them. Don't worry about it today. Tomorrow's fine.
I reckon so, Mayor, but I tell you, I think Kate's right. I think those miners are right. There's going to have to be blood paid for blood, Mayor.
Nelson actually kind of stands proper this time. Not to that. I think you're right, Bill. I think they have every right to it. Now, I don't know about these buffalo soldiers, but I mean, hell, like you said, Mr. David, we can round them up, ask them what happened, see if they know what's going on with these engines. But I mean, by any right, I mean, I can't blame them if they were hunting the engines. I mean, we saw what they did to the sheriff.
Well,
Would that have happened if they'd been more careful?
And how can you say you know? I've seen what the engines do to people. I know what they're like.
All I know is that no one was getting attacked by engines until they showed up.
well, what they say is true. The people aren't going to be too predisposed to sit on their hands. What's that fella that's been coming around town? That engine boy. What's his name? You know? One that wears the white man's clothes.
That crow fella. I know the one you're talking about.
Well, I think we may want to grab him and bring him on in, and well, I don't know. We'll see what happens, but might want to have a talk to him. Maybe he knows what's going on, and we can just have a nice chat. And if the people get all riled up, well, that's one less Indian skulking about town, I guess.
That's true. But you may want to be a little forward thinking on that. If it turns out he's the only person that can talk to these engines, you may end up wanting him around.
As if we need to go talking to the ones that killed the sheriff.
Well, it's easy to say if you're not some farmsteader with daughters to protect. And you have to worry about vengeance killings, that sort of thing.
Well, ma'am, we are responsible for LeClaire, not the whole Colorado territory. We'll get the Union Army down there if you really do want to send those buffalo soldiers down there, which I do think's not a bad idea. They wipe those engines out. I don't think we need to be doing much talking like Nelson says.
Yeah, and like you said, if you do need to talk to the buffalo soldiers, I served in the army. I can go down, talk to them if you need. Get their side of things. Hell, maybe they'll be happy to help with engines.
I think that's a right fine idea, Nellie. Why don't you, first convenience, you get them to bring them on down to the jail. We'll talk to them all nice and kind-like, and see if we can't win them over with words before we use our steel, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, of course.
I'll walk around, visit local businesses, and introduce myself. See if I can't gather some of these rumors and get a little feel for the pulse of the town. Like I said, I tend to keep to myself, but this badge here, it's been thrust upon me, and I intend to do the job to my utmost ability.
Well, it sounds like you men know what you're doing. I'll keep my freckled nose out of it. It's man's business after all. But as far as anyone having their finger on the pulse of this town, she just kind of taps her chest. You need look no further than me. And might I say, Mr. Tucker, I have to say that for this unpleasant inheritance of duty, I can think of no finer man in town for it to happen to.
Oh, shucks, Kate. Your flattery will get you everywhere with me. You know, I'll be around to ask you about what you heard in the Jewel, but like I said, I got to make myself a little more visible and maybe come down from the mountains from time to time now.
Jim's been pretty deep in thought, just kind of listening to everybody, their points of view on everything, and he looks over to Bill and he says, How many of those Indians were there out there when you encountered them?
Well, you know, like it is in the woods with the Indians, they seem to melt into the trees, but there was a handful of them we killed. I counted, how many we killed? 6 of them?
I think 6, yeah.
Counted 6 bodies. Most of them just young braves, I think. There's one big strapping lad there that, well, he was the one that took Gundy out.
Is that something that you think you need to call the military in for? He looks over to the mayor.
Well, that's just the 6 that are dead. I don't know how many there are down there. The military's already here. Put them to work.
He nods. Oh, yeah. It could keep our people safe.
Kate is right. Having Union soldiers around here, especially Blackens, no offense to them, you know, Colorado was a bit southern leaning before the war, and the war's just barely stopped, so getting them out of town would help. Calm everything down. We don't need them causing any issues around here, especially if they think they're high and mighty, being soldiers and all.
Even if it being them 6 dead braves were wholly to blame for Gundy's death, what we have here is a perception problem. It don't matter what we do. Somebody's going to have to pay. Somebody's going to have to hang.
He says, Jim looks out over the mountains and stuff, and back to them. And I don't know this Crow fella. I mean, I know he works over at the manor or something, but you think he could be some kind of spy for them?
Oh, I doubt it. I doubt it. But, like the sheriff said, the people are only going to see the yellow skin and get them all riled up. I don't know what they'll do otherwise. They might march down to Brookville and get them all killed. These miners aren't the smartest fellas.
Let's take a win where we can get one, eh? At least them David boys, they all be dead, right?
Well, that's what Nellie says. You didn't fill me in all the well anyway. What happened down there? Haven't had a chance to ask you. He's talking to Nelson, obviously.
Sorry. Yeah. It was about the Davids, yeah.
Yeah, he's just asking kind of what happened. You can just summarize it. It's fine.
Yeah, Nelson kind of nods. Yeah, well, we got out there. It was mighty terrible. They had that. He kind of looks a bit cautiously towards Kate, but doesn't really make eye contact or anything. They had that Josephine out there. Knife to her neck. Well, I tried to reason with him, bring him in, but they just weren't having it. Well, we tried to get him. A stray bullet caught that poor Josephine, and well, they went down with a fight. All except that that last fella who was bleeding out in the snow trying to wander away, and well, I put him out of his misery.
Wait, you left out that part. Which fellow was it that didn't burn?
Oh hell, I don't really remember all their names. It was that big one.
You don't say, she says.
Yeah. Yeah, fella was mighty hurt. Bleeding quite bad. I don't know if he would have made it back to town. So, well, I did what I did.
Well, when you take one of my men out there to get those ashes, you show him where that Bill Davids fell as well.
I mean, I could try. He'd wandered a bit of ways.
I have faith in you, Mr. Ward.
Nelson nods. Yeah, I'll do what I can, like I said.
Mayor just looks between the two of you and looks over to the preacher. What do you know about Crow? You said he works at the manor. What manor's that? Dunn Manor. Dunn.
Oh, okay, yeah. Over at the Dunn Manor. He was out there building a fence one day as I passed by.
Well, that's a lead for you, Sheriff.
Well, he was. Just the other day, he was asking to help out with the sheriff, I suppose. Something about scouting and such, probably. I don't know. He might come out if we bring up that.
Well, yeah, whatever you guys think best.
Where has he been since this all happened?
I ain't seen him. Clearly, I don't think anybody's seen him unless he's already dead and strung up somewhere. I think we'd hear about it, though. He probably skedaddled. Be my guess. Honestly, probably never see him again.
Jim nods and because I don't think Jim knew that he was with them. He actually was with the sheriff and them before he got killed.
I mean, he was the day before, yeah. Yeah.
I think the last thing he was going to do was help them track the David boys, but
yeah, it never happened. So, for whatever reason, he wasn't around.
Yeah.
But
it's getting into the fire water.
Probably lucky for him.
Yeah. He's off smoking peyote somewhere, thankfully.
Might have been him instead of Gundy.
Yeah. But the mayor says, well, this is pretty terrible. So you guys are going to talk to the Buffalo soldiers, try to find Crow. Keep your ear to the ground, preacher, and Miss Kate, that would be appreciated.
Of course. That's what I do. And, preacher, after we're done here, I'd like to speak to you about some ideas I've been mulling. Ways to keep this town from, well, falling into a complete den of iniquity, she says with a little smile. Some ways that I can be more than just a tick on this town. I think that I have some ideas of ways that we can continue to build LeClaire into a prospering sort of a town.
He seems hesitant at first and raises an eyebrow. Well, of course, miss. I should stop by your establishment for a drink as well.
It is traditional to raise a glass.
He smiles and nods.
The mayor just nods and walks and puts an arm on Bill's shoulder again. Just let me know how it goes. I'm probably going to send somebody up Denver way as well. Check on those, if anybody knows about those Buffalo soldiers. But get what you can from them. Find this Crow fella. I think you're going to need another deputy or two. Who are those boys that have been helping you? That old guy and there's a couple. The other one that went down with you to Brookville.
Oh, I forget his name.
Arthur. His name's Arthur.
That was Arthur. Handy with the steel, if you know what I mean. He's looking for a job. I think we could have him come on board.
Well, unfortunately, I have another opening, so yeah, we can pay him. I'll pay anybody out of my own salary anyway. For now, we got to take care of this place. This place is getting bigger, and the two of you can't do everything.
That's mighty kind of you, Mayor.
Wished I was able to help you boys more, but I guess I gotta do this bureaucratic bullshit.
Well, least you could do was come down and join us at the Jewel. Sounds like the first round's on Kate here. Kind of looks over to her.
Indeed it is. I won't even water it down.
I wouldn't think you would, Kate.
Well, you'll have to excuse me, boys. I got some work to do. But you guys, drink one for Gundy for me. Reverend, Kate, boys, come talk to me when you find something.
Yeah, of course. Nelson gives him a good nod. And
Have a good day, Reverend. Or Mayor.
He nods, takes a puff of his cigarette, and walks back towards town.
Jim starts to limp on down the hill towards Kate's establishment.
Nelson turns to Bill. Well, it sounds like we got our work cut out for us. A lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, it certainly does. Unfortunately, I don't think that these tough times are behind us, Nellie.
Well,
There's going to certainly be more rapids ahead.
I'm sure, but I mean, you can always look on the bright side, I guess, or try to at least. He stuck that on you rather than me. And he kind of points to the badge.
This thing, Nellie, might look like a star to you, but to me, looks like a big red bullseye. Now, I'll do it. I'll do it to carry on Gundy's legacy, but I'm going to need your help.
Yeah, of course. You have me all the way if you need me. Of course, like I said, I'm glad it's on you and not me. I don't think I'd be able to, do anything quite as well as you or the sheriff. Not yet. Don't exactly know my law the best, but I'll learn. I'll do my part.
Jim actually stops and looks back towards Kate and kind of offers his arm. Care to accompany me, ma'am?
Kate looks to the other two, gives a little nod. I do need to be getting back. Maybe I'll see you down at the Jewel later.
Absolutely, Miss Kate. And Bill kind of takes his hat off again and says, I ain't said it before, Kate. I am sorry about your friend Joe. I heard the news.
She looks away.
Look real shook up back there. I am truly sorry.
Well, I realized that she weren't no count to anyone but me. So I don't expect a big to-do, but I thank you anyway.
Well, you might say that, but you know, she was somebody's daughter too, Kate. So
She laughs at that. Oh, trust me, Daddy doesn't care about neither of his daughters. But she did have a sister. And with that, she gives a little bow, and she walks away with Jim.
yeah, Tucker would head on down the hill to the saloon.
Nelson follows after, quiet, somber.
You walk down the hill from the cemetery, the new cross catching the sunlight in the midday as the town continues their daily toils and tasks. With a new sheriff, you guys are free to roleplay in the saloon if you want, or we can stop it, or some people can call it a night, and anybody who wants to keep going can. If there's things to do, you let me know what you guys want to do.
I think that's pretty much the gist of it for Nelson. He's just gonna quietly drink the rest of the day away, probably.
Yeah, I hate to kill the tone with Kate's wheeling and dealing with Jim Carson. That stuff can kind of be done in the background anyway.
Yeah, such a business lady.
Can't kill the mood.
Yep. So the rest of the day is spent drinking and lamenting the dead, which two people have passed that are important to each of you. So, and that's where we'll end it then.
Preacher walks into a whorehouse.